Good morning, live from Auburn, Alabama, the friendliest village on the plains. I'm Robert McNeely with Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, as we will take you today to a White House press briefing these wonderful Wednesdays. I look forward to Wednesdays because it is Hump Day in America, and that usually marks a special press briefing from none other than the all-star of press secretaries, Karoline Leavitt, waiting for that press briefing that she will hold, of course, in the West Wing. A great room if you have not been there, the James S. Brady press briefing room. It, of course, was once the location of the White House swimming pool. So when you go inside there, there's actually very close quarters. And you've seen, because of this administration being so transparent with so many different outlets, including not only the corporate media, but also those new voices and the new media, it gets a little bit uncomfortable and cramped in there, but we thank our fellow colleagues for enduring all of that so they can get that information to you, the American people. But of course, here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, we are on the right side of history, and we are privileged and honored to bring you all of this access to President Donald Trump, of course, the 47th president of the United States, also his Vice President, J.D. Vance, who we should be hearing from relatively soon today as well in this broadcast, as he has an event, and of course, the 119th Congress. And my goodness, look there, it is the Vice Presidential Envoy, the Marines, bringing Vice President J.D. Vance for a lovely event there. So what a great backdrop with the Marine helicopter live in Washington, D.C. And we'd like to thank our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, Colonial Metals Group. This is one of the best go-tos for your retirement. There's no question about that. So scan the QR code now, shield your savings. Colonial Metals Group, led by Paul Stone, the great CEO. We'll also be going to one of my recent interviews with him during the broadcast as well, so you can really break down what's good for you and good for your family, whether that's retirement, whether that's sending the kids to college, because you probably have your assets put into properties, also a 401k, IRA, but that can actually roll into tangible gold, silver, these precious metals that have stood the test of time. Check out freegoldguide.com/RSBN. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. And that is your go-to, no obligation, just to see the advancements and the increase in value over the course of the year 2000, Y2K, when we thought everything would go down, if you can remember that, if you were around during that scary moment. But since then, gold has gone up 840%. Go back to 1971 when we went off of the gold standard during the Nixon administration, up over 7,000%. So think about that. A great commodity and your best bet and hedge against inflation. Colonial Metals Group. Paul Stone, good people. Check them out today. Scan that QR code. Shield your savings now. Say hello today. Do not delay. Get that gold and silver. We thank them for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, as we are excited to really celebrate female empowerment today is kind of the theme of the show. We're going to have some great guests on to talk about a plethora of different issues that have really been being worked on by this administration. And if you have not caught Karoline Leavitt's MAGA Minutes, they are fantastic. Usually a recap on Fridays of what has taken place week in and week out at this White House and outside of the Beltway, as President Trump seeks to make America safe again, healthy again, of course, wealthy again. And that was done this week, especially this new agreement with Hyundai, the wonderful car manufacturer, but also to make America great again. And if fantastic, Mr. Director. We'll toss that there now to check out the recent MAGA Minute from last week in preparation for Karoline Leavitt's press briefing.
It was another very busy week here at the Trump White House. Here are the facts. President Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act to deport illegal migrant foreign terrorists and Tren de Aragua members to El Salvador. President Trump also launched decisive and powerful military action against Houthi terrorist bases in Yemen. Companies like Boeing, Johnson & Johnson and NVIDIA announced billions of dollars in new investments in America, which will bring thousands of new jobs to communities like yours across the country. President signed an executive order aimed at dismantling the Department of Education after decades of declining academic performance despite trillions of dollars being spent on this federal agency. NASA astronauts who were abandoned by the Biden administration were finally brought home safely thanks to President Trump and Elon Musk. President Trump also delivered on his promise to release the JFK files with no redactions for the American public's consumption. And President Trump became the first sitting president in history to address a crypto conference. And last but certainly not least, egg prices have officially fallen more than 50% since President Trump took office. Gas prices have declined nationally for the fourth straight week in a row, and we are on our way to renewing the American dream. We are not tired of winning yet. We'll see you for next week's MAGA Minute.
Talk about hitting it out of the park week in and week out. Karoline Leavitt is just outstanding, and she is delivering that message in such a way for every American to see. It's an amazing transparency that's happening with this administration. And I had the privilege of seeing it myself when I've had a couple of questions for the president. He is so willing, ready, and able to discuss a plethora of issues with the press and through them with the American people. And we saw so many great successes. I think my favorite thing from last week was watching the kiddos sign the executive order with President Trump in the East Room to officially begin the end of the Department of Education, really an agency that has been bloated in corruption and waste. And we don't need that anymore. We need states' rights. We need the 10th Amendment to that beautiful Constitution, our Bill of Rights, that grants the states to be truly the experiments and the labs for democracy. That's something that's very clear in our founding documents. Look at the Federalist Papers. This was argued when we came into inception nearly 250 years ago. And the vision of President Ronald Reagan to end the Department of Education coming to fruition with President Donald John Trump. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, Tax Network USA, tnusa.com/RSBN. It's your go-to to settle those back taxes right now. And with the professionals over at Tax Network USA, you don't have to worry about those questions regarding your property taxes, your state and federal income taxes. Maybe you have some questions about the potential addition of the External Revenue Service that might be happening in the coming months and years under this new administration. So give these Patriot experts a call today, 800-357-1415. Protect yourself from the IRS. We know that the last administration added over 80,000 IRS agents to the plethora of the bloated D.C. swamp. And you don't want them looking into you unnecessarily and to your assets, your private wealth. So give them a call today, tnusa.com/RSBN. No need to delay. Call today because we know April 15th is right around the corner. Although, I love this time of year. The spring, you have the Masters tournament right around the corner, March Madness in the middle of all that. But, it's that tax day. It's always dreaded. So give them a call today, tnusa.com/RSBN. Thank you to Tax Network USA Incorporated. Always good to have them in your corner if you have these vital questions regarding your taxes. And we have two wonderful events today leading into the noon hour, and that's going to be, of course, Karoline Leavitt holding a press briefing in the West Wing, and Vice President J.D. Vance with the ornate background of, it looks like Marine 2 there for you, where he will give a speech to our Marines. So a wonderful thing because he is actually the first Marine veteran to be Vice President of the United States. So a fun little fact there. This is someone who decided to serve in Iraq on the war on terror and the war for Iraqi freedom. It was right after high school, and that GI Bill led him to The Ohio State University. Of course, he went on to law school to meet his wonderful wife, Usha, the second lady of the United States. And is now, of course, our 50th Vice President of the United States. So an exciting time to see someone second in command who holds these populist views that will make America great again there. And Mr. Director, curious on just who might be on the other end of the video there. Oh, wonderful. Okay, I'm not seeing Justine, but I'm seeing a frozen image from yesterday, but that's okay. We can fix that there real quick for you as we continue on with this wonderful broadcast. Looking forward to, of course, Karoline Leavitt today, focused on the press briefing and all of the major victories that have taken place really over the course of the last week. We have looked at now Hyundai bringing in billions and billions of dollars, pledging that to the United States. So what you're going to have here is Louisiana is really going to be the benefit of this, with a new manufacturing plant going down to Ragin' Cajun country. And we saw Governor Jeff Landry with President Trump, of course, House Speaker Mike Johnson and Leader Steve Scalise, both Louisianans, very excited to see that happening. In addition to that pledge and that new agreement, Hyundai will also be building a plant in Savannah, Georgia. So the Southeast really seeing a growth in wealth and a growth in a number of different industries. Even the Peach State of Georgia, you see so much of tech and Hollywood moving into the Atlanta area and literally taking the resources that were once in the Golden State of California, coming to a place that is good when it comes to taxes, is good when it comes to business, is good for unions as well. So we're seeing a lot of success here in the Southeast, and a lot of that is due to people like President Donald Trump and those pro-business minds who understand what it means to use a dollar or two. So that's always important as you look to making those big deals with a number of different companies, especially foreign companies. And we know as well, the tariff threats have been active. They are a great way of utilizing negotiation. And we know this to be true because of history. President Trump mentioning that William McKinley used tariffs on a regular basis before his untimely death. And it brought wealth, an enormous amount of wealth in roughly 9 months to this great country. We had so much money in America in the late 1800s, so at the turn of the 19th into 20th centuries, that we committed or created those blue ribbon committees. And you might see those on certain schools, public or private, the blue ribbon committees. If you see those seals honoring that, much very similar looking to the vice presidential seal there in the flag you could see in the split screen. But those were the beneficiaries of that great wealth. So President Trump trying to mirror that once again and being very successful with bringing a number of voices to the table in order to negotiate those issues, whether it be Canada, whether it be Mexico, whether it be overseas, including the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which was so hospitable for Secretary Marco Rubio and also, of course, Steve Witkoff as they negotiate the peace between Russia and Ukraine. So it's nice to have an administration who knows diplomacy, who knows how to handle all of these things. And we saw that yesterday as well, as President Trump met with the ambassadors who are yet to be confirmed. What's going on, U.S. Senate? Let's step up the schedule and get these great ambassadors confirmed, especially people like David Perdue. When it comes to dealing with the Chinese Communist Party, he will be excellent in those negotiations. And you have a table of people who really want to seek to serve in this capacity and will do truly an extraordinary job at that. In addition to that meeting, President Trump also signed executive orders to streamline the Treasury as well as deal with a crossfire hurricane. All of those FBI details will be released. So that's an exciting, again, transparent thing to see for this administration, for the American people. Also, an administration that has released the files on JFK, of course, MLK, and the RFK assassination. So, as President Trump said yesterday during that meeting and signing those executive orders, hey, journalists, are you going to go in there and actually read this and see what's there? And of course, during that meeting, also taking questions from from the media as well. So an exciting time for transparency in this country. whitehouse.gov/media, new media. If you want to get that seat, whitehouse.gov/new media, you can go in there and sit and ask those questions. I'm curious to see who will be in that new media seat today during the press briefing in the James S. Brady press office. Of course, there's a live shot of the White House, that emerald green lawn that looks so fitting and so nice for this Irish American Heritage Month. And then the split screen, Marine 2, as Vice President J.D. Vance will address Marines forthcoming. And he has been perhaps the greatest vice president in recent memory. His ability to work hand in hand in tangent with President Trump has been second to none. It's been an extraordinary thing to observe, and it makes one wonder because we know that he's someone very popular and being considered to be the next president of the United States. If you go back to CPAC just a month ago, that CPAC straw poll, very important to look at the future of American politics, because if you have not been at a CPAC, each year they gather, the activists and the patriots and those who are so involved in this conservative, populist, libertarian movement put forth their vote on a plethora of different candidates who could be the next nominee for the GOP come 2028. And far and away, Vice President J.D. Vance was the most popular in that straw poll. And that includes people even like Nikki Haley or even Tucker Carlson. He's been on that. And he said, I'm so honored that my name gets included in the CPAC straw poll. But I can tell you right here, right now, I am not going to be a candidate for president nor vice president because I simply don't know how to do that. And that's why we are such good friends with Tucker Carlson, someone who's brought such transparency to the process and really speaks his piece, speaks his mind. And it's always nice to have someone who has the humility to say, I just don't know how I would do that role, so I'm not going to consider myself for this. Because if you look back to the last election, I think we saw that difference, not only of liberty and freedom versus tyranny and communism on the far, far left. Of course, the Trump-Vance ticket, the big tent ticket that brought everyone into the fold. People that had a business background, who actually had to hire and fire people, create a budget whose lives depended upon their due diligence and their hard work. And then you had two other people that their lives have been based off of government. They've always been involved in the public sector, and nothing wrong with the public sector. But when your mind is solely focused on what the public sector wants you to do, if you're a puppet for the bureaucratic deep state, you can't make decisions on your own. How are you going to ultimately run that business? So you have all that to look at. As we are joined now by Justine Brooke Murray of MRC TV. And Justine, are you able to hear us, Justine? Enough for earpieces in there. But as we try to make that connection, we are awaiting, of course, Karoline Leavitt's great press briefing. I'm sure it's going to be another home run out of the park. It's been exciting to go in week after week to observe these and to bring you, the American people, this unbridled access to the White House and everything that is being moved at a breakneck pace. We have seen this day in and day out with this administration. And even to Don Jr.'s comments recently, and also Kai Trump, his lovely, wonderful golfing granddaughter, they said that Grandpa, he doesn't stop. On the campaign, he went 2 straight days of all-nighters. And it's something that I actually credit myself. I don't need a lot of sleep myself to get going and get the day started. I think part of that is I'm so excited to be with you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network with the American people. And I love what I do. It's a real honor and privilege and a blessing from God. And when you love what you do, it's hard to go to sleep at night because you just get too excited to be awake for the day and for the evening to accomplish the many goals and tasks at hand. And that's something that we've seen from President Trump ever since he came down that golden escalator with First Lady Melania Trump. I can't believe that's nearly a decade ago now, to really make his case to the American people. Those 20 promises that became the RNC platform of closing the border, building out an economy for all Americans. And we know this from the first term as well, that over the course of those 4 years, especially with those tax cuts, everyone did better. Everyone. Inflation went down, the economy skyrocketed, we had peace through strength. And he's literally replicating all of that on a daily basis here in this second term. I just think the biggest difference is he saw the bureaucratic deep state for what it is, and he had an administration in his first term that some people were the snakes in sheep's clothing. They were really bad people. And now he surrounded himself with the best of the best, whether they be Republicans, Democrats, independents, all coming together under this big tent populism to make America great again. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live as we wait to see Vice President Vance and, of course, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. AngelPace.com. You have to experience the miracle today at AngelPace.com. This great company out of Spring, Texas, the Lone Star State, focused on non-GMOs, no chemicals, because we sometimes get these dry hands, especially this time of year as spring has sprung. But, you know, in some parts of the country, it's still cold, and I've suffered from this for a long time. Just those dry hands. I tried the Miracle Cream here on the show, and it brought great relief. My hands were literally glowing. I'm not kidding. They will glow and just look great, and people will be like, wow, where'd you get that? And, of course, you tell them angelpace.com. But they have other options as well. And immunity fighting, this is a beautiful orange option, all filled with vitamin C's, again, all natural. You have a mosquito repellent as well, so you don't need that stuff that has all the DEET and that nasty chemicals that you don't want that to inhale, or especially if you have kids around. So go to angelpace.com, experience this miracle. They also have a Manly Man line that come in black bottles, whether it's like a facial cleanser, also a cream for the guys. So guys, don't worry, this is for you too, not just the ladies out there, but also a great gift for your gal if it's a birthday celebration or just for, you know, a random Friday. Forget the flowers. Get her angelpace.com. It'll be a good thing. Experience the miracle now. Angelpace.com out of Spring, Texas, Christian owned. They hire veterans. We got Vice President Vance, of course, talking to our Marines today. So angelpace.com, experience that miracle. Thank you for joining us and sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And the flags are flying today, the American flag and the Vice President's flag, looking just fantastic, as does the beautiful, the talented, the smart Justine Brooke Murray. It's always lovely having you on the show today. How's everything at MRC TV? And talk to us about the awesome content creation you bring on a regular basis. I noticed today that you were criticizing Disney and this ridiculous take on really a childhood fantasy story that should be timeless, but of course they have to put their woke agenda in it.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me back. It's always great to be with you guys. I just did my weekly episode here at MRC TV. It's called Woke of the Week. It airs every Tuesday. So yes, we focused on Snow Woke this week and how the movie seemed to bomb and blow up like a Hezbollah pager, but the left and the Hollywood Diddy types, it seems like they need to look in the magic mirror the most, because they just can't seem to understand why they keep failing while they're pushing all this woke propaganda. Nobody wants to line up to have their favorite childhood classics butchered and then be lectured by this leading lady boss girl type about how evil and patriarchal their society is.
Yeah, Justine, it's funny because as you brought up in the video, I've been thinking myself how Hollywood wants to redefine norms, not only for a communist agenda, but that's been something that I've talked to with friends regarding this film. You literally have Gal Gadot, who is just as beautiful as ever. They're almost attacking natural beauty and that attraction that God has put into us in order to observe beautiful things, with this person that really is, you know, less than that in so many different ways. So do you find that ironic and strange that they would try to redefine beauty as we know it? It's almost as if they're going against God's creation.
It's unsurprising. This is typical out of the Marxist playbook to destroy what's good, true, and beautiful. So if you reverse the roles and you define beauty as evil, in this way, beauty to strive for something so wonderful, it poses a competition. And Marxism says the competition is evil. Trying to attain the best and achieve something on your own, including beauty, that's evil because you have to compete against other people. There will always be there will always be losers. That is just the natural way of life. But Disney is trying to go against what's natural, what's good, what's true, what you can't change. You can't change nature, just like you can't just chop off the parts of a man and turn him into a woman. But Disney keeps trying to shove this down everyone's throats, and it's like hitting a brick wall over and over and over again. You're getting the same result, but they somehow keep trying to lecture the public that we must somehow reverse reality when it's just not going to happen. So they have to do it by force. And that's what we've seen for the past few years before President Trump came back in and is trying to reverse everything.
And talk about President Trump reversing everything. This plethora of extraordinary executive orders yesterday, of course, within the last week, the Department of Education. I know you had the privilege back in 2019 to see his executive order relating to free speech on the college campuses. Take us through some of your favorites and what you're hopeful for as a result of some of these recent executive orders.
Well, this month we're celebrating women. President Trump is actually having a reception at the White House to celebrate women, and he's been the best president for women in a very long time because the previous president has tried to erase us. So something that I think is just common sense, it shouldn't even have to be executive order. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point where it needs to be signed into law that men cannot compete in women's sports. A man shouldn't be able to invade a woman's space, especially in the name of progress, in the name of inclusion, where once again, the left is once again trying to exclude women by erasing us, redefining what a woman is, and more it's very incendiary, the fact that we have parents reporting their schools are forcing their little girls to actually change in front of men. And we're hearing stories, they're blocking the doors to locker rooms to make sure these little girls do not leave until they change in front of boys to somehow fulfill these perverted adults' sick agenda. And President Trump trying to change that, it's just common sense.
And we hope that they are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, because it's so backwards, it's so perverted to want to do this. It's like, let kids be kids. And I think we've seen in the last few years this movement of people who were not really political, just going to these school board meetings, especially on the Eastern Seaboard, whether it be your home state, the Garden State of New Jersey. We know this has happened especially in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Talk about how you might have encountered people really coming to the movement that were never political in the past, especially women.
Compete in pageantry, and I'm a lifelong Miss America, Miss New Jersey competitor, lifelong, probably about 10, a little bit under 10 years. And a couple of years ago, there was a movement to try to get our pageants to erase femininity, because it was this push to make pageantry fit this mold pushed by the mainstream media and this culture that wanted to get rid of Miss America and Miss USA in the first place, because they had this idea that in the name of feminism, we must completely spay ourselves, that femininity, wearing dresses, that it's somehow evil and misogynistic, and all the women who are competing in pageants, we're just a bunch of dumb bimbos because we love to be feminine. And it couldn't be more anti-woman, promoted by the people who claim to be for women. So then what we saw were these organizations that tried to capitulate to the mob by shoving men in the competition, by allowing men to put on a dress, put on lipstick, get tons of plastic surgery to cosplay as women. And when women started pushing back, they were threatened with their titles. I've seen this firsthand. We had a competitor a couple of years ago in the Miss America organization who was competing for Miss New Hampshire. And New Hampshire, it's no surprise there, it's a very woke state. But it was this idea that somehow if you just dress up as us, you can be us and you can change in front of the girls competing. And girls competing is specifically in the teen competition, they're as young as 13 years old. Wow. So we witnessed the same problem that these female sporting competitions and the girls competing in those competitions unfortunately experienced. And I've seen it push a lot of pageant girls to the right. They won't say it, especially on stage, because they're afraid of sometimes we have a lot of woke judges scoring them the wrong way because of their beliefs. But I've always spoken up about it.
No, and thank God for people like you, Justine, because let me tell you, that's one thing that grinds my gears to see women taken advantage of. It's just wrong. And we've seen a lot of common sense on this new populist right under the leadership of President Donald Trump. On a lighter note, let's talk a little bit of our shared heritage of being Irish Americans. And you have a great mix of a Catholic and also Jewish background, a proud heritage of that. We had a privilege of also being at CPAC's Shabbat Shalom dinner. So that was a really lovely time up in Maryland in the National Harbor outside of D.C. But talk to us about this Irish American Heritage Month. How are you celebrating? And isn't it nice to see President Trump really honoring the legacy of our ancestors and all that they did in cities like Boston, New York, and Chicago?
I love it. I always say March is my favorite month because you have St. Patty's Day and Purim. Purim is a Jewish holiday. They're both somehow branded as the drinking holidays. So I get my Shabbat comes early. Let's just say that in March. It's a fun week, especially when you have St. Patty's Day and Purim in the same week. And we had that this year. I'm again from Jersey, and I went home for a couple of weekends, and we have this big parade in Morristown, North Jersey. I go to the parade every year. I've been to the parade since I was a little girl. My parents love corned beef sandwiches. Honestly, that's all the restaurant. We were at this French restaurant, but no one's French. They're all run by these Irishmen. And I go to the restaurant all the time, but they pull out all the stops for St. Patty's Day. And it's just so much fun. Corned beef is so similar to brisket. It is kind of the same thing with just a little different accoutrements. So we even have a similar cuisine. Growing up, my parents joked that I could either turn into a shrewd poet or a pushy drunk, being Irish and Jewish. And I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, I can relate to that because it's the traditions and the storytelling of the Irish people that has inspired countless generations. And as we had our Irish show leading up to St. Patrick's Day, I was encouraging the viewers as well to visit the Old Emerald Isle because it is just, you won't find another country that is so, I think, welcoming, and that really this small island of, roughly several million people has truly helped inspire the world. And we are grateful for you, Justine Brooke Murray of MRC TV. Please come back anytime as we love your insight and especially fighting that good fight as a young woman in this amazing movement.
So grateful. I'm so grateful to join you all. Thank you so much for having me again.
Absolutely. Thank you. And as we get close now to actually past the noon hour, good afternoon on the East Coast. I'm Robert McNeely. If you're just joining us live here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, of course, we are covering some exciting events today. Vice President J.D. Vance is meeting with Marines and will be speaking to them relatively momentarily. Of course, that's Marine 2 right there that brought him to that base that you see live on the screen there. And, of course, the White House, where later today, Karoline Leavitt will be giving another press briefing, and I'm sure she will knock this one out of the park, as she has been doing ever since the new administration took the oath of office. Thank you to Colonial Metals Group and Paul Stone, the great CEO who really shares with us on a regular basis why gold and silver are a necessity, not just a privilege to have them, but truly that necessity for your portfolio, whether it's retirement, whether it's sending a student to a great university like Auburn University, which you can see right behind me there. It is Buffett's warning. That's Warren Buffett, among other very wealthy Americans who have also heeded the call to gold and silver. So check out Colonial Metals Group. Shield your savings now by scanning that QR code, or you can go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. That is freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code now and get your no obligation 2025 guide to find out what's best for you and for your family members in regards to your savings and your preparations for things like retirement. This is crucial, and truly gold and silver, the best bet against inflation. If you look through this guide, you will see that gold has gone up 840% since the year 2000, gone up over 7,000% in wealth and value since 1971. That's when we went off of the gold standard under President Richard Nixon. Perhaps a very poor choice, but regardless, you have this option to access tangible gold and silver with the best in the business. Colonial Metals Group, thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And again, that's Marine 2, a beautiful chopper that is being adorned by the American flag, the vice presidential seal, as well as this Marine veteran is getting ready to address the military. And he is the first Marine, J.D. Vance, veteran, to be the Vice President of the United States. So a fun factoid there for all of your friends, especially those on the left who might not prescribe to America first and who might have that woke mind virus. And that's okay. It's, some people just aren't paying attention closely like you, the viewer, are to everything happening in America. That's why we ask that you share and subscribe at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. Maybe lend a helpful hand to a neighbor who's just got their head in the sand, because they will learn from this network how much this president and vice president are committed to saving the country. And how will they find that out? It's from our commentary, it's from our analysis, but it's also from giving you this unbridled access to this administration. We don't block out anything. We go right to the speeches. We go right to the press briefings. We go right to the EOs and everything that happens surrounding America first, whether that's inside the Beltway or outside the Beltway. So again, rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. We have a team of incredible writers here at Right Side Broadcasting Network to give you all of this unbridled access 24/7, 365. We want you, the viewer, to make up your minds at home, something that at times other media outlets do not allow you to do. Rather, they try to create a story. Well, we don't hide what we believe in here, being on the right side of history, but we also analyze and bring this to you so that you can make up your own mind. So there you have it, rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. Get all those America First updates and exclusive offers right here at the network. We're going to toss to a quick commercial break. Stick with us as we are awaiting Vice President J.D. Vance and, of course, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Be with us on the turn here. Enjoy the commercial break.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Good afternoon on the East Coast. I'm Robert McNeely with Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. We're on the right side of history, and we're honored to bring to you today Vice President J.D. Vance addressing a group of Marines. Of course, he's a Marine veteran himself, the first one to hold the office of the Vice Presidency, and as someone who is very dedicated to this cause of freedom, peace through strength. After that, we should be over at the White House with Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt as she holds a press briefing. And if you're just joining us now, in the last half hour or so, we brought you that MAGA Minute that Karoline Leavitt likes to share towards the end of the week. But we'll also share with you a couple of videos of President Trump's very crucial executive orders happening yesterday right before a meeting with future U.S. ambassadors. And these executive orders are modernizing the U.S. Treasury. So we'll go to that one first, and then we'll also share a couple others.
We have an executive order for your attention relating actually to government payments. Historically, checks issued by the Treasury are, I believe, 14 times more likely to become the subject of fraud than electronic transfer payments. This is an executive order that's going to push the Treasury Department to modernize its payment system to ensure that where possible they're using electronic methods of payment as opposed to paper checks in order to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, which is obviously an endeavor that we've been pursuing in numerous aspects of government under your leadership.
It's basically modernization of equipment and methods, and it's something that really I think he's going to be a great Secretary of the Treasury wanted, Scott, and so we're doing this, and we have other modernization programs going on. We could let somebody else, whoever's next, whoever that may be, do it, but it's something that should have been done 25, 30 years ago. Okay.
Next, sir, we have a presidential memorandum for your attention. This memorandum requires the immediate declassification of all FBI files relating to the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. This was obviously one of the instances of the weaponization of law enforcement powers of prosecution against you and others. We believe that it's long past time for the American people to have a full and complete understanding of what exactly is in those files.
Which gives the media the right to go in and check it. You probably won't bother because you're not going to like what you see. But this was total weaponization. It's a disgrace. Should never happen in this country. But now you'll be able to see for yourselves, all declassified. Is that correct? Would you say? All declassified?
Yes, sir.
Everything?
The FBI file with there's a classified annex, but other than that, this will put everything in the public eye.
Is anybody going to look? What about you? You going to look? And frankly, the FBI should be ashamed of themselves, and so should the Department of Justice, and so should Biden.
Mr. President, if you happen to be watching, we will be looking through that here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. Thank you for declassifying Crossfire Hurricane. We know that Hillary Clinton's campaign spied on the Trump campaign. We know that the FBI and the Department of Justice were weaponized to go after a sitting president. We know this thank you to Lee Smith, Kash Patel, Devin Nunes, who said something doesn't seem right here, and they spoke up. They spoke up against Republican colleagues, in fact, when this was all really being plotted and unveiled nearly 8 years ago now. And it became a witch hunt and a Russia hoax as a result. Thank you to those brave Americans, and thank you to FBI Director Kash Patel. What a great title to have after all of the lawfare and the nonsense he went through. Think about this president, what he's been through between assassination attempts, court cases, fake impeachments. It should never happen. Just yesterday, or 2 days ago now, House Speaker Mike Johnson mentioned it during a House press briefing that 67% of the injunctions from federal judges against a sitting president in the last 100 years, they've come against Donald Trump. Clearly there's a problem there. Clearly there is an initiative trying to go against the policies of this duly elected president, but in an unconstitutional manner. And ultimately, you now, the American people, can see that. You can see what happened, what took place there, and further investigations definitely needed, and perhaps some people need to go to jail as a result of the lawfare and the criminality and the abuse of power they took on in order to try to harm a president who was duly elected by you, the American people. But you saw through all of that. And November 5th of last year, elected this great patriot, this citizen who decided to serve his country to become once again, President of the United States. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. American Financing. What a great group of people, because they could save you an average of up to $800 per month. And if you give a call today, they could actually backlog that by 2 months. So you're looking at a potential savings of up to $1,600. And how great is that with tax day just around the corner? You know, the average person today is feeling that financial strain now more than ever. Expenses are up, wages aren't keeping pace, and many people are finding it impossible to make ends meet. And it affects other areas of life. If you look at these studies, people are delaying marriage, they're delaying kids, and our friends in the media as well sometimes bring light to this. We bring light to this. This is a civilizational issue to not have procreation happening. So all of this has to do with finances, and American Financing can help so you can reach that American dream. So with little over covering the basics, it's no surprise money and resorting to credit card debt is at a higher rate than it's ever been before, carrying these interest rates well into the 20s, the 30s, or even 40%. If you're a homeowner and stuck in this cycle of mounting debt, you need to call my friends over at American Financing today. Again, they are saving an average of $800 per month for you at home if you own a property. So helping you keep your hard-earned money on a regular basis, reducing that stress. Give them a call today, 888-402-0299, 888-402-0299, AmericanFinancing.net/RSBN. Really champions of American home ownership. Give them a call today. Do not delay. Let's get this done. AmericanFinancing.net/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as we are nearly 20 minutes after the top of the hour, awaiting Vice President J.D. Vance to present to troops right with that backdrop of Marine 2. It has the seal there of the Vice President, of course, the Vice Presidential flag. And who would have thought, I don't know if J.D. would have thought just a few short years ago that he would be a United States Senator, let alone the 50th Vice President of the United States. And I've had some highlights in the last 60 plus days of this administration. One of my favorite was when he walked into the Oval Office for the first time. You could see the awe, the wonder when he witnessed that with his own eyes, accompanied by the president. And that's such a special room. So much history has taken place there. You can actually see now, because President Trump has President Reagan's rug on the ground there in the Oval Office. And I got to see this with my own eyes a few short years ago with a dear friend of mine, a great staffer for the president, actually, who was my college roommate. He showed me the tour, as many of these staffers are actually dual tour guides when you go to the Capitol or to the White House to view these beautiful buildings. You can actually see the Italian marble, of course, the seal of the president in the top of the office, but also the oak that makes up the flooring in the Oval Office. Well, it's funny because some of the rugs don't cover it all the way to the door. When that happens, such as Reagan's, it covers most of it, but not the outer rim. As you walk in, you see these scuff marks. And I asked my friend, what is that exactly? He said the floor was replaced right before President Eisenhower took office, and he played golf so much during a time where those steel cleats were still legal to wear. You really can't find those, especially if you go to a golf course now. They might have a sign saying that steel cleats are prohibited, just because they could scuff up, the greens and such. But anywho, those scuff marks are actually from President Eisenhower. So a beautiful piece of history literally carved into the floor of the Oval Office. So I can't get enough of it, and I just really enjoyed seeing the vice president there, taking it all in, looking at the manuscripts, the original manuscripts of Lewis and Clark as they traveled the western frontier. This is a great nation, nearly 250 years in the making, and I feel that nearly 3 months into this new administration, that this revival is happening, this sense of patriotism, this sense of nationalism, which is not a bad word. You can care for your country, you can be proud to be an American, and stand for the flag, stand for the national anthem, say the Pledge of Allegiance, something that should be done in every single school, whether private, public, parochial, or homeschooling in this great land. And this is a team committed to just that. And it's a relief to see something like the Declaration of Independence. It's in our Oval Office. President Trump has it in there, adorned by countless portraits of amazing Americans and presidents who have served this country so well throughout the generations. Of course, adorned by gold as well, in typical Trump style and fashion, of course, with the FIFA World Cup also sitting there, something that's going to be great next year in conjunction with our 250th birthday, to have those games throughout Atlanta, Georgia, and really throughout the country to welcome the world to play that wonderful game known as soccer. So it's a great thing to do. Visit Washington, D.C. this summer with you and yours truly, especially the students and the young patriots in your life. It may have the ability to inspire because they are the cobblestone roads that great patriots before us walked. And on that roughly 50 square miles of land designated off the Potomac River, a federal city that would do the business of the people, not to be overbearing, not to be a centralized city to be a bureaucratic state as it might have been in recent years, but rather a city center that would show the iconic American story and showcase the greatness of this country. So be sure to visit your nation's capital. Even my sister-in-law has not been there yet, and I told her we have to go this summer. Let's make a plan of it. Let's go see the sights. Let's go see these iconic buildings which tell the story of a constitutional republic that has stood the test of time, that has been inspired by God, and has been through countless trials again and again and again. As we look at a live shot there of Marine 2 and the Vice President about to address Marines, these brave people that we've seen an increase in military recruitment ever since this new administration, really before they got into office, since December. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth reporting that numbers are up, and how exciting it is to see something like that in our country, this new morale, this, again, revival taking place, and those young people seeking to serve us in the bravest way possible by putting on that wonderful uniform, those camo green and browns, to selflessly serve this extraordinary country. You know, another person who serves so well, Mr. Mike Lindell of mypillow.com/RSBN, the spring sheet sale. What a great Easter gift this can be for your mom or for that lovely lady in your life that really enjoys those Giza Dream Sheets. They're super comfortable. Look at this deal right now. You're going to save up to 50%. The Queen Sheets going for $29.98. I can't think of a better deal out there when it comes to a good night's rest. Something so important to prioritize. If you want a good day to follow, gotta get a good night's rest. And Mr. Mike Lindell knows how to do that with over 2,000 items on the website for up to 50% off. Think about that. I mean, what a great deal that is. mypillow.com/RSBN. We here at the network inspired by Mike Lindell's story. He is a great man, a great patriot. Also awesome to interview him. We'll probably have him on again very soon to talk about maybe future plans. I for one, have been pushing maybe that run for governor of Minnesota because we know that this great product might come from different places around the world, like the Giza Dream Sheets, at least with the cotton, but it's manufactured and produced right here in America with a great team behind him. Thank you, Mike Lindell. You fight for free speech. You fight for the Bill of Rights. You fight for election integrity. And we are proud of you as now President Trump signing that executive order yesterday for election security and election integrity in this great land. Mike Lindell, mypillow.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And this has been another great week of President Trump's successes as he met yesterday with Medal of Honor recipients. And that is just an amazing thing because of the 41 million members of the military, the veterans we've had serve over countless generations, only north of 3,000 have won and earned this Medal of Honor. Think about that. And this is for great merit, for going above and beyond that call of duty. We'll toss that now to the video of President Trump meeting with Medal of Honor recipients.
But I appreciate you being here. We'll do it again. I like to do it. I feel good. I feel brave among you people. You have more bravery than anybody. Look how young some of these guys are.
If you go down there.
And of course, Vice President J.D. Vance on hand in the East Room. That's my favorite room in the White House. Tell us what yours is. If you're watching on the chat, tell us if you've been there, or even if you have not been there. Do you have a favorite room at the White House? We'd love to hear some of your comments, see those across the streams and the channels, because it's a wonderful place where a lot of history has happened. Of course, you know, Abraham Lincoln and also John Fitzgerald Kennedy lying in state there for a period of time after their untimely deaths, their assassinations. On top of all of these incredible memorandums, executive orders, the world leaders President Trump has met with right in that room. Of course, there's a scale model of that room in Yorba Linda, California, at the Nixon Library as well. And that portrait of General George Washington, the father of our country, our first president, probably my favorite portrait of Washington, hanging proudly there as President Trump and Vice President Vance meeting with Medal of Honor recipients, those brave souls. You know, in addition to that success, how about the success of Hyundai pledging billions and billions of dollars into the raging Cajun state of Louisiana? Governor Jeff Landry on hand for that, along with House Speaker Mike Johnson and Majority Leader Steve Scalise, both proud Louisianans, and that will be great for that state, in addition to an additional manufacturing plant that is going into Savannah, Georgia. So we see this amazing wealth coming into the Southeast United States, and this opens up thousands and thousands of jobs, public and private sector, unions as well. So great for American manufacturing, great for American steel. We'll see what the White House put out with this video if you did not catch it earlier in the week.
Today, we're delighted to report that Hyundai is announcing a major $5.8 billion investment in American manufacturing. The new steel plant in Louisiana is part of an even larger $21 billion investment Hyundai will be making in the United States over the next couple of years.
With your leadership, Mr. President, Hyundai Motor Group is proud to be a stronger partner in America's industrial future. We are really proud to stand with you.
White House on Truth Social. So be sure to do that, as they are putting out some great content surrounding everything happening with this extraordinary president and his administration as they seek to make America great again, and a way you can make your financial future perhaps great again. Colonial Metals Group, thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. Of course, Paul Stone, the extraordinary CEO, so informative. He can break down really complicated issues and bring it to you, the American people, to know what to do with your financial options. Now, a necessity in this day and age is to have tangible gold and silver with you in your hands, and you can shield your savings now. How do you do that? Well, first of all, scan that QR code, and if you don't have one of these guys to do that, how about go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. There you'll find the 2025 no obligation guide to gold and silver. As I've mentioned too many times at this point, gold up over 840% in value since Y2K, the year 2000, and up over 7,000% since 1971, when we went off of that gold standard during the Nixon administration. So how can you diversify your assets? Well, you can grab properties, you can purchase things like 401ks, IRAs, roll that into your wealth and your portfolio. But gold and silver truly have stood the test of time, especially for retirement, especially for those big expenses like sending your students to great universities like Auburn University, for example. So protect your financial future. You've worked hard for it. You have earned it. Scan that QR code now or visit freegoldguide.com/RSBN. And Paul Stone will be there for you, along with an extraordinary team, the best in the business, in fact, Colonial Metals Group. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. There's a live shot of Marine 2. Of course, President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance will take these beautiful helicopters en route to their Air Force counterparts when they depart for big trips. So nice to have a wonderful backdrop such as that. And those are cool things to do. Let me tell you, if you're ever in Washington as well, if you can visit and see Marine One coming to the White House to pick up President Trump, always an exciting show. And to see the Marines at attention as they drop off for the Air Force at attention as President Trump, of course, boarding Air Force One, or Vice President J.D. Vance boarding Air Force Two. So those are always exciting times to see American democracy in action. But if you want to get all of your America First updates and those exclusive offers right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, just go to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. There you can sign up and see all of our great subscriptions and sharing on your favorite social media platforms, whether it be Facebook to X to Instagram or even Truth Social, where you can actually watch this live show via their application, because they're putting out all the new media too. What a great time to be alive in the United States. Access to all of the new media movement to bring to you, the American people, all of these speeches so you can analyze it for yourself, so you can make up your mind yourself, so you can see exactly what your president, what your vice president, what your Congress is doing on a daily basis. That's what we strive to do here as a live desk. Having existed for the last decade, Right Side Broadcasting Network has brought you that unbridled access to these rallies of President Trump, and we've had 2 this year so far. They're always exciting. We hope more will be on the horizon. Of course, we'll be there in case those do come about. But in the meantime, we are truly your go-to live desk day in and day out to bring you all of this. really incredible, unbridled access to your administration, because at the end of the day, you put them in office. The millions of Americans who voted for this MAGA populist agenda, one focused on putting America first, peace through strength, making America healthy again. And we here on the right side of history at Right Side Broadcasting Network are privileged and honored and feel the weight of that responsibility in the best way possible to bring you that today and every single day as we await your 50th Vice President and, of course, Karoline Leavitt, the White House Press Secretary, who will be presenting a press briefing at the top of the hour. So President Trump, of course, nonstop as he's looking to do a number of different things, and that's bringing wealth back to the United States. He has been unafraid to use the tariffs, and we know come April 2nd, so that's next week, next Wednesday, it is Reciprocal Tariff Day. And he joked around when we were on the plane on Air Force One and ever since that I didn't want to do it on April Fool's Day, April 1st, because you thought I wasn't being serious, of course. So we delayed that to April 2nd. And a great day in American history for all of those reciprocal tariffs. And I had the privilege of asking him that question before boarding Air Force One. What do you think about this, Mr. President? Australia does not want to do the reciprocal tariffs. Some other countries have given you a hard time about this, but he laid out very clearly that tariffs will bring wealth back to the United States. In fact, if you go back to the McKinley administration, one cut too short by an evil assassin's bullet, President William McKinley was committed to growing the wealth of this United States. And he did that through the use of tariffs. And that was before 1913. It was before the use of the federal income tax, and right on the heels of that evil progressive movement of the likes of Woodrow Wilson and people who ushered in this big government grab, thinking that Washington, D.C. had to be centralized, and a bloating, overarching deep state that really was born over the course of the last 100 plus years. That's really what we're dealing with in this day and age, and how nice of it to have this president, truly independent-minded, truly a populist, who is the antithesis of his living predecessors, both Republican and Democrat, who are truly globalists. And I have said it once, I'll say it again, and I'll call them out by name. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, and Joseph R. Biden Jr. failed these American states with their big government grabs, with their, truly fascist ways of creating big business and big government and bringing China into the New World Order and allowing global trade to happen. Not truly free trade, not truly fair trade. How about NAFTA that closed our manufacturing plants, that closed everything that we were able to do with steel manufacturing, with oil and gas manufacturing? President Trump has talked about this on countless times. We are standing on liquid gold, literally. And it's all about drill, baby, drill. It's all about Hyundai bringing billions of investments to the United States so that steel manufacturing can happen once again. And how great is it to be in steel sales right now? My goodness, I think they will be doing pretty well with Hyundai's announcement, as well as other companies committed to manufacturing here in the United States. And from my neck of the woods, being a Midwest kid, I had the privilege of going to these small towns really around the Midwest, really the strong shoulders that built this great country. And you can find this, whether it's in the dairy fields of Minnesota or Wisconsin, or you go through, of course, my hometown of Chicagoland, which was once a cow town, which turned into really a steel city. Of course, Pittsburgh is the steel city, but really throughout that corridor, the Midwest of the crossroads of America, Indiana, into the Wolverine state of Michigan and the Buckeye state of Ohio, and of course the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. These people, these immigrants, built the nation with their hands. And President Trump is allowing that opportunity to happen again, not only with automation, but thousands and thousands of jobs that will be created as a result of using tariffs and of bringing the government really out of the process. For every regulation, at least 2 were struck down in the first administration. President Trump doubled down on that, if not tripled it. For every 2, you need now 5 regulations taken away. So each and every deal, President Trump looking at this with a businessman's eyes. And that's exactly how he did it when he built his empire known as the Trump Organization. And I always find it funny when people criticize that he somehow was handed this. No, I mean, he went to a great university. He learned business. He learned from perhaps one of the best businessmen of all time, his dad, Fred Trump. But it was his vision that built out middle to low income housing, a company that specialized in that in places like Queens, New York. And he had that eye for Manhattan. He said, I'm going to build there. I'm going to reshape the skyline. And he did just that. And he has the greatest golf brand probably in all of golf today. If you look at what they do over at Trump Golf, I mean, just extraordinary what Don Jr. and Eric have been able to accomplish. All meanwhile, they've been subpoenaed more than any other Americans in the history of time. So talk about God with us, God with the Trump family. We have seen that on a daily basis, and thank you, God, for calling these citizen servants into action to make America great again. And Mr. Director, can you share that sponsor one more time? Text Network USA. Oh my goodness, you need to call them today. Do not delay. tnusa.com/RSBN. Tax Network USA will help you with all of those back taxes. Make sure you settle those before tax day if possible. April 15th is almost here. So hopefully we're not getting some sweat on the brow if we did not do that yet, but don't worry, you have some time. Protect yourself from the IRS. We know the last administration brought over 80,000 agents into the fold, and President Trump said that he'll be sending some of those excessive agents down to the southern border to help the Marine Corps and also the Army Corps of Engineers doing an extraordinary job to secure our border, along with our ICE agents, our Tom Homan, the border czar, of course, the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who has been on those ICE raids with these great patriots to get the worst of the worst criminals out of the country. They should have not been here in the first place, but in the meantime, it affects your taxes big time. So give a call to tnusa.com/RSBN, that's Tax Network USA Incorporated. Call 800-357-1415 to learn how to settle your back taxes today. Give them a call. Do not delay. Tax Network USA Incorporated. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as we are looking to almost a quarter to 1 o'clock now, about 12:45 on the East Coast, awaiting, of course, a press briefing by Karoline Leavitt, the outstanding press secretary. Also, we are expecting remarks from Marine Corps veteran, your 50th Vice President J.D. Vance, in front of Marine 2. An exciting day in America this Wednesday, March 26th. If you're just joining us now, I am Robert McNeely. Happy to be with you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live as we give you unbridled access to this administration, now 60 plus days in office. And usually history scales a president's achievements by that 100-day mark, but it seems as if every week it is nonstop, as we shared that MAGA Minute with you in the last hour of all the incredible successes that President Trump had just in the last week, whether it be executive order signings, releasing the FBI files of Crossfire Hurricane, streamlining the Treasury, meeting with U.S. ambassadors, of course, meeting with Medal of Honor recipients, and also releasing the JFK files. So you, the American people, can do that citizen journalism if the people in that room refuse to do so. But we assume that some will be looking into those. We know we will be looking into those many documents here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. But Mr. Director, I don't know if we have that video available to show the MAGA Minute once again before Karoline comes out. Wonderful. And we'll share that with you momentarily if you did not catch that in the first hour, just to give you a nice precursor of what might come from the latest MAGA Minute. So be sure to follow Karoline Leavitt, and perhaps the best new way to do that at White House. So you go to @WhiteHouse on True Social. We'll share many videos from not only the MAGA Minute or Karoline's sharings on Instagram, on X, and other social media apps, perhaps some of your favorites, but also there at White House on Truth Social, where we stream all of this live for you, or they do over at True Social, a great organization that is showcasing many different things in the new media happening. And what a great time to be part of the new media, because 4 years ago, we know how scary that was when we were being silenced as conservatives or those with right-wing views. Well, that's changed, and for the better. But we'll toss that to that video now. Karoline Leavitt's latest MAGA Minute from last week to detail what will happen right before this press briefing.
It was another very busy week here at the Trump White House. Here are the facts. President Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act to deport illegal migrant foreign terrorists and Tren de Aragua members to El Salvador. President Trump also launched decisive and powerful military action against Houthi terrorist bases in Yemen. Companies like Boeing, Johnson & Johnson, and NVIDIA announced billions of dollars in new investments in America, which will bring thousands of new jobs to communities like yours across the country. President signed an executive order aimed at dismantling the Department of Education after decades of declining academic performance despite trillions of dollars being spent on this federal agency. NASA astronauts who were abandoned by the Biden administration were finally brought home safely thanks to President Trump and Elon Musk. President Trump also delivered on his promise to release the JFK files with no redactions for the American public's consumption. And President Trump became the first sitting president in history to address a crypto conference. And last but certainly not least, egg prices have officially fallen more than 50% since President Trump took office. Gas prices have declined nationally for the fourth straight week in a row, and we are on our way to renewing the American dream. We are not tired of winning yet. We'll see you for next week's MAGA Minute.
And we are definitely not tired of winning yet, as I echo Karoline Leavitt's great words there. And it's so nice to have, really the youngest press secretary in history to share all this content with you on social media apps on a regular basis. Perhaps we've never had such a connection between an administration and the American people through the use of communications. And we see it every day here at Right Side. It's almost as if you don't need that official press briefing. Think about recent presidents for a second here. So many of them, including Barack Obama and Joe Biden, you would not have an official press conference with them for hundreds of days, if not for an entire year. And that's the dirty little secret of some in the media who might be left of center, and that's okay. That's their perspective. But sometimes they want to mold objective truth into being true when it's actually their opinion. And that's just a frustrating thing to go through if they're claiming to be true journalists. But here you have access, unlike other administrations. Remember the living presidents, the predecessors who would walk out and just wave to the press. They go on to Marine One. This president always stops by to give a comment or two, at least giving a few minutes to update everybody. How many countless times has he been in the Oval Office to give impromptu press conferences or meeting with world leaders and then asking if there's any questions? And that easily can turn into 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour worth of dialogue. So I'm always perplexed when left of center outlets will say things like, well, this president's trying to really push down the American media, or give it a new spin, or do the things that Nixon wanted to accomplish. Oh, how scary is that? I'm so confused by that, because this has been the most transparent administration in American history, bar none. And if you disagree with me or you wish to opine, we have feedback at rsbn.tv. Please feel free to write in if there's something happening in your neck of the woods that pertains to America First policies, something you want to make us aware of, because we truly want to be not only your go-to live desk here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, but also your advocate, the voice for the voiceless. And it's a true honor to fulfill what our founders envisioned for the success of a constitutional republic, two things are core to making that happen. First, it's acknowledging our history and knowing that our rights come from God up above, not from a bureaucratic deep state, but from the hand of the Almighty in heaven. He himself who cares so much about this dear nation. It truly is his nation. And second, a free and fair press. Crucial to the freedom against tyranny. And so you can know what your government's doing. In fact, you're their bosses. You put them in these positions of power. And they should remember that. And I appreciate the fact that we now have these MAGA populist representatives, whether it be in Congress or whether it be in the executive branch, who acknowledge that their power is given to them by God through the American people. And the more we have that, the more we will stay intact nearly 250 years after this nation was envisioned. And we'll be celebrating that big time as President Trump rolls out announcements regarding the big birthday bash, not only for this year, but next year, which will be, I think, at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. So look forward to that and perhaps being there in live. That should be the best summer block party perhaps in all of American history. And I'm excited to see today who will be in that whitehouse.gov/new media seat. And Karoline not only laying out what's been taking place over the course of the last few days, but what exactly will be right there for you, the American people, as we are 60 plus days into this new administration. And we are currently awaiting as well Vice President J.D. Vance to address the troops, a Marine veteran himself, the first Marine veteran to sit in that seat as the 50th Vice President of the United States. Marine 2 is on hand. I'm sure he has some meetings to attend to as the troops are awaiting their vice president, with American flag and the vice presidential seal flying proudly over a beautiful day on this Wednesday, March 26, in the year of our Lord, 2025. And can you believe how fast this year is going? I'm just like, wow, it's amazing. It feels like November 5th was yesterday, and also feels like yesterday that we were there for Inauguration Day on that cold January celebration where President Trump took the oath of office, and really the first time in 40 years that it was done under that beautiful rotunda. I almost like it more when it's inside like that. So ornate. We got to listen to the beautiful vocals of Carrie Underwood, and of course, great pastors like Lorenzo Soul, our good friend here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, invoking the words of Martin Luther King Jr. and saying, good God Almighty, we are free at last. That envisioned nation coming to the promises it once first gave, promises made, promises kept for each and every American of every background, of every belief, regardless of sexual orientation, religious background, skin color, doesn't matter. It's about the content of your character. And Pastor Sewell and Martin Luther King, of course, reminding us of that with the Reverend Franklin Graham and, of course, Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York, all giving wonderful invocations during that inauguration. And we have seen those policies enacted ever since January 20th. As I hope you're enjoying this quad shot here of yours truly, Robert McNeely, the White House, of course, Marine 2, and the West Wing, the James S. Brady briefing room. So much happening today in America. As we thank our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, angelpace.com. This is your go-to. Experience the miracle today. If you have those dry hands and you just need that relief, why not go to Angel Pace? Because it's non-GMO, no chemicals. They are a Christian-owned company. They are unafraid of their belief system, so why not share with great patriots like Angel Paste? Also, a very effective multitude options of creams for you and for your needs. So experience the miracle today. AngelPaste.com. They happen to hire veterans. They're out of the Lone Star State, Spring, Texas. So they know a thing or two about living by the Gulf of America and that tropical climate, especially as springtime has just started, but those warmer temperatures coming down south usually leads to those pesky flying bugs known as mosquitoes. So they have a natural repellent that you can put on you that will not harm you, will not harm your pets like some of those sprays do. I'm sure you'll be at those barbecues. Oh, it drives me crazy when I'm out celebrating the 4th of July, and someone liberally sprays that mosquito repellent on them, and then it just kind of floats around and it gets on your hot dogs or near your drinks, and you're like, oh my gosh, then I'm going to drink that, I'm going to ingest that. No, thank you. Well, Angel Paste Miracle Cream has that solution for you. They also have a vitamin C orange option for immune health. So why don't you check out all of their great products, angelpaste.com. And if you're a guy, don't you worry. Still be a manly man. Grip that tackle box with all of their manly lines. So experience the miracle today. Angelpaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And of course, we have a live look there of the White House and the press briefing room. And we will see the questions today for Karoline, I'm sure on many different issues regarding, of course, tariffs and President Trump's next actions. Of course, we heard some storyline yesterday during the executive orders and meeting with the ambassadors. Of course, Michael Waltz was on hand, the national security advisor, taking responsibility for really that ridiculous Atlantic story, trying to make something out of nothing. But I'm sure we'll have some of those questions today. And it's always fun to see a live press briefing because this is what our great founders envision. You know, a transparent government sharing in dialogue with the American people. So you know exactly what's happening. You don't have to wonder what's going on at this White House. In fact, we know who's in charge. There's no auto pen controversy happening in this White House. We see the man in action on a daily basis, signing those executive orders, those memorandums, and the legislation into law, as it is now 60 plus days into a new administration. You know, usually you look back on that 100 mark and see what the accomplishments are. No need to do this with this great administration because they are nonstop making America healthy again, making America wealthy again, ultimately making America safe again and great again. So we will look at that live for you, the American people, as we await a White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, giving her weekly press briefing to those in the beautiful James S. Brady briefing room there. So excited to see that. And we are joined now by Republican strategist Katie Zachariah, all the way out on the Golden Coast of California, a beautiful place to be and something that a place that's been in the news a lot recently. Katie, it's so exciting to always have you join us and give this unbridled access to what's not only happening in your home state, but the analysis throughout the country. You know, we have this Atlantic story that's going around. Seemingly, the fake news wants to make a lot out of nothing, and Michael Waltz taking responsibility of that yesterday. Do you have any more insight regarding everything happening with that story and what seemed to be, a temporary fumble on the part of some in the administration?
Well, what it's looking like right now in the Twitter sphere is Laura Loomer brought attention to Alex Wong, who works for the National Security Advisor, and I think is calling into question some of what he's doing for Mike Waltz. However, as it pertains to the specifics of this, I think that President Trump has expressed his commitment and his trust with Michael Waltz. And I think there's a lot of deference for him, because if there was something to sniff out, if there was impropriety, I know President Trump would not want that from his national security advisor. So heads would have rolled already, right? Someone would have been fired. Someone would have resigned. So there's an immense amount of trust in Michael Waltz. He's apologized. I think it's getting to the bottom of who created the chat, who added Jeff Goldberg, and that person needs to be held responsible when that's determined in some form or fashion.
And is there any concern over this judge that's been assigned to this lawsuit involving the Signal chat? We have this Judge James E. Boasberg. I'm not very familiar with him, but of course we've seen 67% of injunctions against a sitting president. In the last 100 years, it's been against President Trump. So is there any concern that this case might not be a fair one?
Well, he's also the judge that's overseeing the deportation stop for the Tren de Aragua to El Salvador. And the federal district court in the District of Columbia has 15 full-time judges and 10 senior judges. That's 25 judges that could be assigned to these cases. Boasberg is the chief judge of the District Court of DC. And this has been a continued problem in the District of Columbia in the federal district court. Judge Beryl Howell has been assigned, she was the former chief judge, has been assigned an abnormally high, a statistical improbability of cases assigned about President Trump, right? She was the Mueller judge, and now she's the Perkins Coie judge. And the DOJ has made a motion for her to be recused off of this case. And I think similarly, there needs to be a wider investigation, not just an impeachment of Judge Boasberg, but a wider investigation onto how these cases are being distributed in the district court in DC, because there is no statistical probability that he gets both cases, the signal chat case and the deportation of the Tren de Aragua.
Yes, and House Speaker Mike Johnson mentioning that with House leadership just the other day in the press conference, that there will be some oversight looking into this because it has to happen now. So is it something that has to go through those federal jurisdictions? It seems like it has to be Congress that really oversees this with the judicial oversight. Otherwise, these judges will go unchecked.
Yeah, Jim Jordan and in the House, and then Chuck Grassley in the Senate. I think there has to be an investigation into this. And Jim Jordan and Elise Stefanik previously have asked for an inquiry into Judge Beryl Howell's over-politicization, her statements against President Trump. She was the chief judge again for 10 years and was always against President Trump in every single case. And in addition to this, there is a spouse, an ACLU director on the DC Circuit Court. And so you have all this intertwine of all these ACLU cases coming against President Trump and the Trump administration. And then you have these judges that are ruling against President Trump and his administration. There absolutely is a smell of impropriety, and there has to be an investigation. And what we're seeing now with our House leadership is that there will be, if not just an impeachment, a much wider investigation into these rogue imperial judges that are usurping power from President Trump.
Definitely seems like some inside baseball that just gets really ridiculous day in and day out with those who seek to create, again, this bureaucratic deep state. I don't know if you caught any of the hearing yesterday as well with, of course, Tulsi Gabbard at DNI, also with FBI Director Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, but also CIA Director Radcliffe. And John Radcliffe really being berated by the senator from Georgia. And I'm confused. I mean, you're a lawyer. You've been in the middle of this litigation and following all this. When you ask someone a question, especially in legal proceedings, do you continue to speak over them? I'm surprised by all of these hearings in D.C. on a regular basis, whether it be Republican or Democrat. They summon the witnesses. The witnesses take their time away from work to come and sit and answer questions and be transparent. And then they are just trying to get their 50 seconds of fame, and they're not allowed to answer these questions. It seems rather ludicrous, does it not?
Well, I think more what it is a show, right, that these people want to put on. They're not actually interested in finding out the answers. They're interested in making drama for the news to hang on to so they can cling to this type of news as long as they can, right? This story is good for the Democrats right now because what were they hanging on to before this? They were hanging on to keeping illegal criminal Venezuelan immigrants that came here illegally, that committed crimes and were deported. They were hanging on to protecting them. That was literally their story. So this is good news for them. Anything that takes away from their lack of policy, from their lack of accountability, and really for their lack of party cohesion, I think is all they want. So they're going to haul in everyone that they can to make a big show for the news then to peddle out to America that President Trump and his administration are reckless. But he declassified Crossfire Hurricane yesterday. And I think if we should be talking about any scandal, it should be going back to Russiagate. And I'm sure you saw Hillary Clinton on X, kind of talking about, oh, I can't believe this is happening in regard to the Signalgate. However, she was entrenched in Russiagate, right? She peddled that Trump Alpha Bank hoax. She's at the middle of this. And so if we're going to talk about any scandal, I think we should be looking at Crossfire Hurricane right now as it comes out.
Oh, yes. And are there certain things you think that will come out as a result of this? Because we know her campaign spied on the Trump campaign. That's not a political talking point. That's actually what happened. So I think this really, implicates the Clintons on a number of different levels. But again, if it wasn't for FBI Director Kash Patel and former Congressman Devin Nunes and the author Lee Smith, a great patriot, we would not have had, of course, the plot against the president and really seen that documentary and the book that really revealed this usurping of the executive authority, not only of the president, but a constitutionally elected leader in the government. They tried to upend it from inside of Washington. I mean, it seems like a Tom Clancy novel.
Correct. And the evidence is there. Right. And I think this declassification is going to further show how much the government and the Democrat Party weaponized, get in conjunction with each other, weaponized themselves against President Trump and spied on him, but created this Russia collusion hoax, which it is complete hoax. Right. And so I think this timing is perfect because the real scandal, worse than Watergate, this is a real Watergate, right? Is the Russia hoax and the Russia collusion. So, Hillary Clinton on X, it's the pot calling the kettle black. She has absolutely no grounding to stand on in terms of classified material and with all of her emails and everything else. So the Democrats are going to hold on to this story for as long as possible. They're going to slow roll it. They're going to demand people resign. But I think what President Trump has done is he's stood behind his team. He has within the inside said, I want to make sure that this is all good, this is not classified and everything, and then move forward as a team and move forward as a unified effort. So I think that's what he's shown. He's shown his backing for Mike Waltz. And I think we're going to see some accountability with hopefully the Russiagate as we move into this admin.
Oh, no question about that. And in your legal expertise and opinion, do you think there is ramifications for someone like a Hillary Clinton? Or do you think someone will go to jail as a result of everything we know with Crossfire Hurricane and even the things we might not know, given that this was declassified just yesterday?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look through, but I trust Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and the team that President Trump has put together for these types of situations. So I'm looking very forward to seeing what kind of accountability comes. And if anything, there needs to be a precedent set that this type of spying and these type of scandals are not going to be acceptable, and then further peddled by the journalist and the media, right? This story only became a story because Hillary and the rest of the participants peddled it to journalists who then took it and said, okay, we're going to run with it and make it something without doing any investigation into, is this story real? Is there veracity here? They all went with it because they had such bad Trump derangement syndrome that they wanted to anything that was against President Trump. And so if it's not just Hillary Clinton, I think the legacy media, just like CBS, is being held accountable for their fraudulent 60 Minutes video, or, Ann Seltzer out there with her fake poll in Iowa, on the eve of the election, right? There has to be accountability. These people can't continue to be participating in politics while they're peddling, false Russiagate hoaxes and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. It's become very clear to us, Katie, that it is we the people versus a bureaucratic deep state that this beast of an organization is on its last leg. And thank God for that. But we must remain vigilant, as the founders once told us, and we are doing that here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And it's always a joy to have you on with your expert analysis. Katie Zachariah, Republican strategist from the Golden State of California. Please come back and be with us very soon.
Thank you so much.
And if you're just joining Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, we are awaiting Vice President J.D. Vance and, of course, White House Press Secretary wonderful Karoline Leavitt to give us an update on everything happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And as Katie so brilliantly laid out, what a day, what a time, what a year it is to be alive, considering the Russia hoax and the peddling and the fake news and the conspiracy theories that ended up becoming true as a result of things like Crossfire Hurricane. And now you, the American people, can go back and have that transparency, whether it's the JFK files, the MLK files, the also RFK files, and now, of course, Crossfire Hurricane. You can go and research it yourself. It is going to be out there, declassified by this president just yesterday and within the last week in regards to those other documents. But thank God that we have great people like Kash Patel at the FBI, like Pam Bondi at the DOJ, working hard for you, the American people, in order to bring justice and liberty to all. I mean, that's the promise of this great nation, and it's wonderful to have an administration willing to fight for it on a daily basis and willing to get that information out to the American people. Of course, here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, we're on the right side of history. We have opinion, we have analysis, we have a journalistic integrity to focus on those stories that are pertaining to you, the America First agenda, the people who care about it, the people who got President Trump back into the White House by knocking on those doors, by making those phone calls, by literally putting that elbow grease into the work of an election. And that was thanks to the great organizers at Trump Force 47 in a campaign unlike any other, a political comeback unlike any other in the modern era. And for those of you who might be watching who don't agree with all of the great things happening in this administration, that's okay. You're welcome to watch. You're welcome to dialogue and come to that conversation, having a seat at the table of the great American experiment. That's what it's all about. Free speech. It's about the content of your character. It doesn't really matter necessarily your background, as long as you acknowledge where we came from, a Judeo-Christian nation rooted in the rule of law, everyone equal under that law. We'll toss now live to White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt in the James S. Brady briefing room.
Secured trillions of dollars in private and foreign investments. Every single day, more money is pouring into our country, which will create more jobs for hardworking Americans. Today, Schneider Electric pledged to invest more than $700 million in the United States to boost American energy infrastructure and AI. On Monday, Hyundai announced a $20 billion investment in the United States, including $5.8 billion for a new steel plant in Louisiana, which will create nearly 1,500 high-paying jobs. President Trump is truly turning America back into a manufacturing superpower. Yesterday, President Trump marked National Medal of Honor Day by meeting with 21 of our nation's bravest heroes and incredible patriots who have been awarded the highest military honor. Beautiful picture. The president also signed a historic executive order to protect the integrity of American elections by strengthening voter citizenship verification and banning foreign nationals from interfering in U.S. elections. These are the common sense solutions that only Democrats could oppose. But voters deserve elections they can trust, and critical confidence is being restored thanks to President Trump's leadership. Later this afternoon in the East Room, President Trump will mark Women's History Month by honoring the exceptional women around our country, including the highly talented women in his administration and his cabinet. And on an additional scheduling update, the president will hold a press conference in the Oval Office today at 4:00 p.m. to announce tariffs on the auto industry. And I will leave that to him to make that announcement later. Unfortunately, all of this good is happening for our country. This administration is working hard on behalf of the American public every day, but the mainstream media continues to be focused on a sensationalized story from the failing Atlantic magazine that is falling apart by the hour. Here are the facts. The National Security Advisor has taken responsibility for this matter, and the National Security Council immediately said, alongside the White House counsel's office, that they are looking into how a reporter's number was inadvertently added to this messaging thread. We have said all along that no classified material was sent on this messaging thread. There were no locations, no sources, or methods revealed, and there were certainly no war plans discussed. The Atlantic has even admitted this themselves. Their release of these internal messages validates the truth, which we have been saying all along. If this story proves anything, it proves that Democrats and their propagandists in the mainstream media know how to fabricate, orchestrate, and disseminate a misinformation campaign quite well. And there's arguably no one in the media who loves manufacturing and pushing hoaxes more than Jeffrey Goldberg. Goldberg is an anti-Trump hater. He is a registered Democrat. Goldberg's wife is also a registered Democrat and a big Democrat donor who used to work under who? Hillary Clinton. This is the same Jeffrey Goldberg who infamously lied about weapons of mass destruction to get us into the Iraq War, which cost trillions of dollars and thousands of American soldiers. And how else has Goldberg discredited himself? By absurdly claiming that President Trump was Vladimir Putin during the 2016 campaign, by peddling the Russia hoax that tried to hijack President Trump's first term, by inventing the suckers and losers hoax to help Joe Biden in the 2020 election, by peddling a hoax about President Trump involving Gold Star families to help Kamala Harris in the 2024 election, which our campaign at the time vigorously denied. Jeffrey Goldberg didn't care. There's more, but we don't have all day, and we can now add this signal hoax to this very long list. The real story here is the overwhelming success of President Trump's decisive military action against Houthi terrorists. On March 15th, President Trump ordered a series of military operations against the terrorist Houthis to defend U.S. shipping assets in the Red Sea, restore freedom of navigation for international shipping, and defend the United States from enemy threats. United States forces successfully struck dozens of targets across Houthi-controlled territory. And as a result of these actions, several Houthi leaders were killed, including the Houthi drone chief, his deputy, and several of their drone experts and other key leaders. We also destroyed command and controlled facilities, weapons manufacturing facilities, and advanced weapons storage locations. And it's important to remember why this powerful action took place in the first place. Because of Joe Biden's incompetence and pathetic weakness on the world stage for years, the Houthi terrorists grew emboldened. Immediately after taking office in 2021, Joe Biden removed the Iran-backed Houthis from the foreign terrorist organization and specifically designated global terrorist list. Did anybody in this room ask the Biden administration at the time why they made such a stupid mistake? This reckless action undid the designation put in place by President Trump during his first term, and what followed was predictable and devastating. The Houthis targeted U.S. military ships and aircraft, hit commercial ships, including U.S.-flagged vessels, threatened our personnel overseas, and attacked our allies in the region. This resulted in more than a year of U.S.-flagged commercial ships being prevented from safely sailing through the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Aden. This had a massive negative impact on global trade of the economic security of the United States. Joe Biden was the commander-in-chief, and he sat on his hands while the United States of America was bullied and embarrassed by terrorists. President Trump and his team are putting a stop to these threats and restoring American strength around the world. The Trump peace through strength approach means no terrorist force will stop American commercial and naval vessels from freely sailing the waterways of the world. But unfortunately, this is not what the Democrats and the media want to talk about. They are focused on a coordinated campaign to try and sow chaos in this White House. And this has been the most successful first 2 months of any administration ever, which is exactly why they are doing this. We are not going to bend in the face of this insincere outrage. And here's just one example of how bad faith the Democrats' criticisms are. Democrat Senator Mark Warner is hysterical over the use of Signal, which is an approved decrypted app, in the killing of Houthi terrorists. But Senator Warner himself used Signal to work with a lobbyist for a Russian oligarch to connect with the disgraced Steele dossier author who started the Russia hoax, which Jeffrey Goldberg later reported on. How ironic. We're not going to lose focus of the bottom line. which is that Joe Biden's weakness enabled and emboldened Houthi terrorists, and President Trump's strength and resolve eliminated those terrorists. Here in our new media seat today, we have Lindsay Keith. She is the managing editor for Merit TV and serves as their White House correspondent. Merit TV launched 1 year ago and creates and distributes content across diverse platforms. We're glad to have you with us, Lindsay. Please kick us off.
Thank you, Karoline. I appreciate it and this opportunity for Merit TV. 2 questions, if I may. One on Signal, one on the economy.
Sure.
On Signal, how comfortable is the president with what was shared so far now that the chain has been released?
The president's view on all of this remains the same today as it did yesterday. And I think it speaks volumes about the leadership of this president that he went directly to all of you, members of the press corps. He was asked, do you want someone else to go out and do a briefing? And he said, no, I will tackle this story. I will discuss it. The people need to hear from me about the situation. And so his thoughts on this remained the same today. He has placed great trust in his national security team. And as for the usage of Signal, as the president said yesterday, as the CIA director has testified under oath, this is an approved app. It's an encrypted app. The Department of Defense, the Department of State, the CIA has it loaded onto government phones because it is the most secure and efficient way to communicate. As for, again, the original situation in this messaging thread, the National Security Council, the White House counsel's office continues to look in to how this mistake, which the National Security Advisor has owned, occurred, and the president has ensured they are doing that.
On the economy, consumer confidence hit a 4-year low this month. Can you help explain to the American people how tariffs will help them in the long run?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm grateful for the question. The American public will hear later this afternoon from the president directly on the topic of tariffs. And as you all know, April 2nd day, President Trump has proudly dubbed it Liberation Day for our country. What he means by that is it will be a day where the United States of America will no longer be ripped off by nations around this world. It will be a day where Americans finally see free and fair trade practices restored. We are no longer going to allow our allies, our competitors, and our adversaries to take advantage of American workers. And if you think about your hometown in the state that you grew up, Main Street looks a lot different today than it did many years ago. And President Trump wants to restore America as a manufacturing superpower around the globe. He wants products to be made right here in our great country with great, hardworking American hands that will ultimately result in higher wages and more money in the pockets of the American people. And he's also, in addition to tariffs, also determined to pass tax cuts later this year, as he did successfully in his first term, to put even more money back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. Peter.
Caroline, if I can ask you very quickly about the information we've seen, just to set the predicate to all this. Has the president been briefed and physically seen he's seen all the details of the chat as printed by the Atlantic?
I just spoke to the president about it, yes.
Then let me ask you, if I can, very quickly. In the chat, Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, details F-18s, Tomahawks, so some of the weapons that were used. He details the timing involved for this, all of which occurred 31 minutes before, as he says, F-18s would launch. The DoD manual details classified information as significant military plans, saying that is secret, that's classified. So what about, there are no methods, there are no sources, but that's not what determines what's classified. So what is it about what Pete Hegseth wrote that makes you say this is not classified?
Well, it's not just me saying that, Peter. It's the Secretary of Defense himself who is saying this as well. And he put out a very strong statement earlier today listing all of the things that were not included in that message that he sent to the group. And again, this message, there was no classified information transmitted. There were no war plans discussed. Why did the Atlantic downgrade their allegation about war plans to attack plans? They're now playing word games because they know this was sensationalist spin from a reporter who is well known for doing this. We have said all along no war plans were discussed, no classified material was sent. You have the Secretary of Defense saying that. You have the director of the CIA, the director of National Intelligence, the FBI director, all testifying to that under oath, and they should be trusted with that.
To be clear, Americans can make the decision for themselves, but whether is the you said it's not war plans. Would you characterize these as military plans, military operation plans?
I would characterize this messaging thread as a policy discussion, a sensitive policy discussion, surely, amongst high-level cabinet officials and senior staff. And I'm so glad, Peter, that you said the American public can decide for themselves, because I think the American public should decide for themselves based on the outcome of this operation. And what happened in this operation? Terrorists that were allowed to run wild by the Biden administration were killed because of the direction and the determination of this president and his team. And this message also shows, this messaging thread also proved that President Trump has an incredibly dynamic team who is working incredibly hard, flying all over the world to secure world peace and to fix up the foreign policy crises that the previous administration left for this team to inherit.
So to be clear, we all in this room and around the country would agree that we're glad no American service members were harmed, and we're glad that the mission was a success. We'll stipulate that. But the president said that Pete Hegseth said none of this was classified. So given the president has seen it now, and given the president understands that significant military plans are deemed classified as secret, how does the president view none of this, which details times and weapons and more, as being not classified?
I've already been asked and answered this question. The president's thoughts on this remain the same today as they were yesterday,
On what basis,
as well as the Secretary of Defense. This question has been asked and answered. There was no classified material discussed. Jackie.
On what basis I was asking?
Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. So why aren't launch times on a mission strike classified?
Again, I would defer you to the Secretary of Defense's statement he put out this morning. There were various reasons he listed, things that were not included in that messaging thread that were not classified. And again, going back to the American public, do you trust the Secretary of Defense, who was nominated for this role, voted by the United States Senate into this role, who has served in combat, honorably served our nation in uniform? Or do you trust Jeffrey Goldberg, who is a registered Democrat and an anti-Trump sensationalist reporter? This president and this national security team are putting our national security and the American people first. We are restoring American strength around the world, and the results of this operation speak for themselves.
Putting aside Jeffrey Goldberg, though, just for American service members who are going to have to carry out these missions in the future, what I guess the message that's coming from the response to all this that we're hearing is that nothing sensitive happened, and I guess the logical conclusion of that is that if these messages had gone out publicly prior to the launch, that wouldn't have been a risk to service members. I don't know that they're comfortable with that. So can you explain, had these messages been published, would the plans have moved forward? Would the launch have still taken off?
What I can tell you is that the President, as the Commander-in-Chief of our United States Armed Forces, and Secretary Pete Hegseth, who is an incredible man and a warfighter himself, take the lives of our American service members with the utmost responsibility, and they would never do anything intentionally to put their lives at risk. And again, they are working hard on that every single day, and we are protecting our service members while also restoring peace throughout this globe. It's something the previous administration has not done. And I would just add one more point. We are not going to be lectured about national security and American troops by Democrats and the mainstream media who turned the other cheek when the Biden administration, because of their incompetence, left 13 service members dead in Afghanistan, and not a single person in the previous administration was held accountable for that botched withdrawal. Joe Biden said, in fact, it was a great operation. That is despicable. It's unacceptable to this president and this Secretary of Defense. The National Security Advisor has taken responsibility for this inadvertent number being added to the messaging thread. But above all, we take the lives of our troops, safety, security, prosperity around the globe with the utmost seriousness.
Goldberg's intentions, do you believe
Jennifer,
that he would release that to embarrass the administration ahead of the worldwide threats?
Jennifer, go ahead.
Given what you've said about the president's trust in his national security team, can you say definitively that no one will lose their jobs? No one will lose their job at all because of this signal situation?
What I can say definitively is what I just spoke to the president about, and he continues to have confidence in his national security team.
Caroline, one more. Can I ask one more, Karen? On the targets in Yemen on March 15th, can you say were 100% of the targets that were planned for March 15th, were they all destroyed? Because that would be an indication if if some of them were moved or they were not all hit, that maybe perhaps some of the enemies were able to get some of the information in that signals chain?
What I can say about the operation is what the Department of Defense has put out there. I would refer to them for any further operational details. But there have been more than 100 strikes conducted against Houthi targets, and they have hit key Houthi leaders, air defense systems, command and control nodes, headquarters, weapons manufacturing and storage facilities, and these operations will continue until the freedom of navigation in our seas is restored and U.S. shipping can safely transmit without the fear of attack. And again, we believe that this has been a very successful operation thus far, and it will continue until this administration feels it no longer has to, and these terrorists have been taken out, which again is something previous administration should have done, but they didn't, and now we've inherited this crisis. Stephen.
Thank you, Karoline. I'd like to clarify something about the investigation and also ask about some conservative commentary. On the investigation, Mike Waltz said last night that he had spoken to Elon Musk about figuring out how Jeffrey Goldberg's number got in his phone. You mentioned the NSC and the White House counsel's office investigating. Can you just clarify who is investigating, who's leading that, and also Dave Portnoy, who endorsed President Trump, said today that he thinks that Mike Waltz should leave. Could you respond to that?
Sure. Great respect for Dave Portnoy, but I just answered that previous question from Jennifer. As for your original question about who's looking into the messaging thread, the National Security Council, the White House counsel's office, and also, yes, Elon Musk's team. Elon Musk has offered to put his technical experts on this to figure out how this number was inadvertently added to the chat. Again, to take responsibility and ensure this can never happen again.
I have two questions. One on a follow-up on something you just said. But since we have these messages released, and you said that the president has now personally reviewed them, at the chat at one point, Pete Hegseth wrote 14-15 strike drones on target, and in all caps he said, "This is when the first bombs will definitely drop." Does the president feel that he was misled by his national security advisors, whoever it was that told him there was no classified information in there, now that he's seen these messages?
I've now been asked and answered this question 3 times by the both of you, and I've given you my answer. The president feels the same today as he did yesterday.
Okay.
Philip.
And on my follow-up on what you had just said.
Go ahead, Philip. Caitlin, I'm not taking your follow-up.
I have a follow-up on something you just said, though, Caroline. That's
Caitlin,
regarding
I'm not
Jeffrey
taking
Goldberg.
your follow-up. Philip, go ahead. I have called
Thank
on
you. The vice president seemed to express some frustration that Europe wasn't doing more to police waterways in their backyard, noting in that signal thread that 40% of European trade goes through the Suez Canal. Does the president share that opinion and frustration? And then going forward, should the Europeans be responsible for policing that waterway?
Well, the president was asked this question yesterday by the pool in the cabinet room, and he answered this question. He said yes, he believes that Europe has been, as the vice president put it, freeloading on the backs of American taxpayers and off the backs of the United States of America, and he wants to ensure that Europe pays their fair share. He's always been very honest and upfront about that, and I think the vice president shares those concerns with him as well. Sure.
Enlisted soldiers, sailors, and Marines would face consequences if they shared this type of information inadvertently with a reporter. Can you tell us more why the president is so willing to give Mike Waltz a mulligan here?
Again, I have now been asked and answered this same question using different language multiple times. If anybody has another question, there's a lot of different things going on in the world. We have tariffs possibly being implemented later today. The president is going to talk about that at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Sure. Okay, thank you for taking my question. I wanted to first and foremost thank the administration for the election integrity executive order, because so many journalists for 4 years were banned from talking about this very subject. So thank you to the administration for that. My question is, yesterday President Trump, when signing the order, said that there is more to come when it comes to election integrity. Would that include same-day voting and hand-counted paper ballots? And why are Democrats so against election integrity measures like obviously proof of citizenship when it comes to voting in a United States election?
Well, it's a very good question. You'll have to ask the Democrats why they're against so many common sense things, not just mandating voter ID. Why are they against men and women's sports? Why are they against deporting foreign terrorists from American soil who have been designated a foreign terrorist organization? I'm referring to Tren de Aragua. As for the election integrity executive order that the president signed yesterday, this is in an effort to restore trust in American elections. There were more than 10 steps taken taken, 10 executive actions taken throughout this one order. It directs the department, or the Attorney General rather, in Homeland Security to prevent non-citizens from any involvement in administering elections. There's also another host of actions. We can provide the fact sheet for you, but it's a very strong election integrity executive order, and the president would also like to see Congress do something about this very important issue. Sure, go ahead.
Karoline, the Republicans and Democrats alike have been expressing some concern about the frequency with which senior Trump officials have been using the Signal app. Has there been discussion, or will there be a review about how often they use Signal, and if you could explain to us how they might be considering other applications to get away from something like this happening again?
Sure. Well, again, first of all, Signal has been an approved app for government use. It's an encrypted app, and as I said, it's the most safe and efficient way of communicating, especially when people can't be in a skiff or inside a room physically together. I think, as the president said yesterday, he wishes that everybody could be in the room, and it's our goal to ensure that everybody can be. But again, no classified information was discussed in this chat, and any time classified information is discussed amongst high-level officials across this administration, secure lines of communication are used, including, by the way, our special envoy, Steve Witkoff, who I understand the Wall Street Journal erroneously reported that he was on this Signal chat on a personal device while in Moscow. That is absolutely false. Steve Witkoff did not have his personal device, nor did he have his government device with him. He was given a classified, protected server by the United States government, and he was very careful about his communications when he was in Russia. So rest assured to the American public, this administration is taking every precaution when it comes to protecting our national security. And that's why the American people reelected this president, because they know that our national security is in good hands with the President of the United States. Speaking of the Vice President, I understand he's going to be speaking any moment now. I would hate to counter-program the Vice President of the United States. You'll also hear from the President at 3 o'clock. He will be honoring women's history at the Women's History Month celebration. We have a lot of great women across our cabinet who will be in attendance, so we'll see you all there. And then you'll also hear from the President again at 4 o'clock when he talks about tariffs. So plenty of time for more questions. Sorry it's a bit shorter today, guys. We'll see you later.
Jeffrey Goldberg's number and Michael Rose's phone if he's a registered Democrat and anti-Trump reporter.
She always starts on that side because of the new.
And we have a conclusion of that press conference due to, they don't want to do the counter programming, of course, the vice president speaking as well. We're actually going to close this stream and go into a brand new stream, so featuring the vice president speaking, and then of course going into a women's event later today. So we will have that all set for you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network live, all of that wonderful coverage. And we saw that quite clearly. This Atlantic story continues to be perpetrated by Jeffrey Goldberg, someone who is a far-left loyalist to the Obama, Biden, Clinton agenda, and someone who is a sensationalist. So it comes directly from the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. At All America First updates and exclusive offers at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. And Mr. Director, do we have any sponsors to go with before we conclude this stream? Oh, fantastic. Colonial Metals Group. We love Paul Stone, the great CEO of this organization. And it's a must that you have gold and silver in diversified for your portfolio. Scan that QR code now or go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Shield your savings today and make sure you have that no obligation list for you to learn options on how you can be your best bet and hedge against inflation. Of course, it's Colonial Metals Group. We love American Finance as well. Why not save $800 per month if you go with this great American group? AmericanFinancing.net/RSBN, or give them a call today to take control of your financial future. 888-402-0299. That's 888-402-0299. AmericanFinancing.net/RSBN. Save up to close to $1,600 over the next 2 months with American Financing. mypillow.net/RSBN. Of course, mypillow.com/RSBN. The great Mike Lindell has the spring sheet sale. Giza Dream Sheets, the Queen, going for $29.98. Save up to 50% on over 2,000 items in store. mypillow.com/RSBN. All made in America, right in Minnesota. So thank you to the great defender of patriotism and free speech himself, Mike Lindell. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're roughly 40 minutes after the 1 o'clock hour as we approach Vice President J.D. Vance addressing troops. Of course, a Marine Corps veteran himself, the first to hold that title of Vice President, and also a Marine Corps veteran as we look live at the White House there. We're going to a separate stream, so we'll close this one and we'll see you on the other one for not only the Vice President, but a great women's event that the President will be speaking at 3 o'clock Eastern. For my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, I'm Robert McNeely. Always a joy to be with you on this beautiful Wednesday. Stick with us and we'll see you on the other stream. If you're taking off to do something else, which we hope you're not, have a wonderful day. God bless you, and we'll see you soon right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.